What is going on, everyone? Platinum Beast coming at you with yet another video. Today I am asking you all a question. What is the deal with inflation? Why do some people say it doesn't matter? Why do some people say that's all that matters? So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, everyone, so today's topic is inflation. So the deal with inflation, okay, everyone says that inflation is what drives the price of things up, and that is true. It's just plain as day. You don't have to have a degree in economics. You don't have to know even a whole lot about money to know that that's what happens, right? The price of goods go up because the value of the dollar is now less. And people like to stack things such as silver to protect themselves in those types of scenarios. Now, on the other side of the argument, there is a group of individuals who say inflation doesn't matter and it's all really irrelevant at the end of the day. And part of the argument with that is they say, if gas costs $3 or $4 a gallon, but minimum wage goes up to $9, $10 an hour, then it all evens out and it doesn't really matter. And people aren't concerned with the number as long as the income equals the ability to buy and sell goods. Now, the problem is, typically speaking, the wages do not increase at the same rate as inflation. And so that's why a lot of people argue for raising of minimum wage. Now, I want to say first and foremost, I am not for the raising of minimum wage. If anything, we can see that as plain as day. I'm down here in Atlanta, or near Atlanta, I should say, not actually in the city, but close enough to say that I'm from Atlanta. And from what I have been able to come up with and from what I've been able to see is every single fast food restaurant I go to, which I frequent often, might not be good for my health, but hey, I like the food. I see in the window of these restaurants now hiring, right? They've got now hiring signs. They're even putting applications in the bags with the food and stuff. They're dying for employees, and they're also paying way higher wages than way back when I started working, right? When I started working, minimum wage was $7.25 an hour. And minimum wage within the state of Georgia is still $7.25 an hour. Now, I started working back in, I believe it was somewhere around 2009 or 10 or something. So minimum wage has not moved in over a decade in Georgia, right? Now, other states have increased their minimum wage. Even states that are what I would consider southern, which the southern region kind of lags behind because our property values are lower, our taxes are typically lower, and so people don't need as much money. And so it makes sense that our wages in the South are lower than those in New York or California and other places. But even states in the South have raised it to $8, $9, even maybe $10 an hour in certain places and things like that. But Georgia has remained the same. But it doesn't matter at the end of the day, because you can go to McDonald's right now as a 16-year-old, in Atlanta at least, maybe not in some very extremely rural place, but in Atlanta, you can go get a job at McDonald's making $13, $14 an hour as a teenager in high school. That's almost double what minimum wage was when I started working, and it's also double what minimum wage still is today in Georgia. So the market kind of dictates the wages that can be paid. Now, you can go and get a job for $14 an hour, but you're not going to be able to buy a whole lot more goods because of inflation. So the point of this video is inflation. Why do some people think it doesn't matter? And I'd love you all's responses down in the comment section below. I'd love to have at least one person who is on the side of inflation not in mattering. Now, I know that's going to be a little bit difficult being a stacking channel, and most people stack to protect themselves against inflation. But I'd love to hear the reason why it doesn't matter. Now, if you ask me, most people think that inflation doesn't matter, like I mentioned, because as long as the wages go up, the price of goods going up doesn't matter because it all evens out. But realistically, where does the buck stop, right? And at the end of the day, unless we spend our money on stuff such as precious metals, we're going to inherently just run out of money and not have any money, because the money that you save, whether it's physical form or in a bank account, is just constantly losing value. So you can make more money all day, but if you're not saving money in something that increases with inflation, such as precious metals, or an investment class that actually makes money, such as stocks or perhaps cryptos, I don't think it doesn't matter, so to speak. Now, one thing is for sure, us stackers with our silver and even our gold are benefiting from inflation. But even so, we still have jobs. We still make money, right? Unless we're maybe retired or something. And because of that, we still need to put food on the table. We're not all just in the clear yet. We don't live in a socialist utopia where everything is just given to us and we don't have to worry about anything. So any money that we have or make, it's just money to do whatever we want with. So because of that, inflation is a major problem. Now, there's a lot of people in government, there's a lot of people just as regular, average, everyday citizens that don't care so much about inflation, and they're not really thinking about it. But this is just crazy. And to be honest, I'm really failing to see where we come out on this. Now, one thing I want to mention about inflation is gold is really good for inflation. Silver is somewhat good for inflation, and platinum as well. But platinum, on the other hand, I think has a value attached to it just because of its rarity. So if we saw deflation occur on a rapid scale, which I highly doubt, platinum, I believe, would still have a lot of value because it's just such an incredibly rare metal. Now, an interesting thought I had about inflation over the past few days now is something like this. This is a 1922 silver piece dollar, and it's got about 3/4 of an ounce of silver in it, give or take a little bit. Now, you used to be able to take your paper dollars and go into a bank and swap them out for a actual silver dollar. So you actually had silver metal. Now, at one point, that was an even trade because this would have been about $1 worth of silver back in the day. Now, it is worth way more in silver, so this is no longer worth what was printed on it all that time ago. $1. So, because of that, we see inflation go up and the value of things go down. Or the value of the dollar go down, excuse me. And nobody really seems to care because it just becomes a part of the norm. Another thing that has been on my mind lately is I decided to go and Google and research how many millionaires there are in the world. And what I was able to come up with, now correct me if I'm wrong, I might have got some old data, maybe I got some misinformed data, so I'm always open to correction. But correct me if I'm wrong, there are 6 million millionaires in the world. 6 million people have $1 million or more in either assets or actual cash, liquid. So, we have 6 million millionaires in the world today. That is more than we've ever had in the history of the world. Now, a lot of people look at those people and they say, oh, they're just greedy, oh, they just don't pay taxes, oh, this, that, and the other. But really, wealthy people are what provides jobs and also many times, if you look at especially a lot of the billionaires, provides a lot of support for all different kinds of things that help benefit the world. They are wealthy and they do have luxurious things like jets and boats and stuff like that, but they help out the world more than the average Joe. But what I'm trying to get at is we are now looking at 6 million millionaires in the world. Now, people might say, oh, that's a lot of millionaires. That's just under 1% of the entire world's population. And so that kind of makes sense. Top 1% has $1 million cash. Top 1% income earners, I think in the United States, I'm not sure what the number is these days. I remember back when it was like 250,000 a year. Maybe it's 350 or 450 now. I have no idea. But nevertheless, there is a top 1% and it exists. And as far as millionaires, they make up 1% of the population as well. But that wasn't the case not too long ago. Another thing we can look at is some of the wealth of the wealthiest individuals in the world. Names like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Gates, Buffett, all those names, they're all breaking into the $100 billion range. Now, that is not a level we have seen ever. Now, if you take into account inflation, we have seen people with that type of wealth in the past, just not exactly that type of number, right? $100 million a long time ago was $100 billion today. So, we have 100 billionaires, but that number doesn't mean as much as it used to mean. So, inflation is constantly occurring and happening, but it seems like no one cares. So I'd love to know what your thoughts are down in the comment section down below as to why that may be. Because as ridiculous as it may seem, even copper pennies that were made out of copper, pennies that were minted and made to only be valued at 1 cent each, are now worth more than 1 cent in copper alone. And copper is somewhat of a, I'm going to get in trouble for this, but worthless metal in a way. It's very cheap. It's very inexpensive. It's highly recyclable, but it's worth more than what it was used for, and not that long ago. I believe it's 1982 and before. Pennies were made out of 95% copper because the metal was worthless. Now it has some worth attached to it. A lot of that, I believe, has to do with inflation. This is not an inherently rare metal. And so because of that, it's simply just the price of everything going up, including copper, that has driven the metal to be more valuable and caused the United States Mint to decide to mint pennies no longer out of copper, hardly. I think there's still a percent or two of copper in the new pennies, but it's very, very little. So little that it's not even worth it. But nevertheless, we just constantly see this going on, and it's gone on for over 100 years. Realistically speaking, because if you take, again, a look at these silver dollars that were taken out of circulation close to 100 years ago, yes, I know they made the peace dollar till 35, but realistically, they were beginning to phase out kind of with the beginning of the peace dollar. There was much lower mintage of this dollar, and it just kind of was fading into the distance. And once it did, it was just gone. And then in 1964, they took it out of regular small currency as well. So it's definitely interesting stuff. And it's definitely something to ponder on. Another question I'd love to hear the answer to is, how long do you think it will be until we see the value of this metal, silver and gold and platinum, but silver as well, go up simply because inflation? Will it just continue to slowly climb over time? Or will it go at a rapid pace in a shorter amount of time? Let me know all that in the comment section down below, what your thoughts are on that matter. But yeah, guys, inflation is nuts. It's crazy. It's out of control. But people have been saying this forever. So what does that mean? Let me know. Hit the like button on your way out. Hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with future updates on the Platinum Beast channel. With all that being said, until next time, we'll see y'all.